Welcome back, everybody. Today I want to talk about ICFs. I went ahead and put together a mock-up based off of one of the details in our blueprints, mainly so that I could get hands-on with it, figure out how to run the electrical, if I need to run any plumbing, how we connect the upstairs to the downstairs, and we'll also get into why we chose ICFs for doing our downstairs. So let's get started. Okay, everybody, so before we get into the video here, we definitely want to say thanks to ICF specialists. Gary and everybody over there has been great. They hooked us up with the samples so that we could actually build this mock-up. This mock-up purely was about figuring out what we're getting into as we start building this house this summer. I learned a ton, and as we're going through and we're editing this video, I'm seeing all this stuff as I'm learning. So don't think that I'm an expert. I'm purely going through and trying to learn this and trying to share that with you guys. So we really hope you enjoy it. If you do, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Let's get into this. So Junior and I spent some time and we got this mock-up ready to go. So you can see in here we've got a good representation of the rebar on the inside, how you stagger it, and then the verticals slide down in between. Got the J-bolts up here for anchoring the mud sill. This is 2 blocks high. I actually was really impressed with the plastic studs, or whatever they're calling them. I was able to, I messed around, I used a 2x4 and I used some plywood, just kind of experimenting with, doing the formwork on this thing. Man, they suck right in. It's great. They're super strong. Another thing that I did here is just when you're pouring a concrete wall, anytime you've got to cut through it, that's a pain in the butt. So trying to think about where you need to pass things through these ICFs is important. If you can get them installed beforehand, it makes it a lot easier. So I've got a piece of conduit that I ran through here. Super easy. You just cut the foam, you slide the conduit through. Now there's a hole that goes from the inside to the outside. So any of your plumbing down below grade, or if you're trying to run an outlet from inside to outside, that you're going to wire up later, it's probably a lot cheaper and a lot faster to go ahead and just install a conduit like that through the wall than it's going to be to come in and drill through that thing later. So we're going to get to pouring this thing, and you guys will get to see how it comes out. So Junior and I got this thing poured out. It wasn't representative of what it's going to be like on the job. We basically used some bag mix. I think it took like 4 bags. You can tell he's definitely a concrete guy. So I don't have any video of that. If you want to check out some pictures of that, check out the Instagram page, or if you're a subscriber, you can check out the community page on our YouTube channel. You can kind of see on the top of these that everywhere there's a web, there's I think they call them plastic 2x4s, and it's inset just a little bit. And when I formed this thing up, I was anchoring into those. They hold really well. The spec says that these are the same holding power as a steel 2x4. So that's pretty good. You're going to be able to hang your sheetrock and everything right off of it. But you can see how thick the foam is. I'm going to take and cut into this thing with the foam cutter and get my hole cut out right next to this guy. That way I can just kind of anchor that box onto this, and it'll be nice and secure. You don't have to. You can put a box anywhere you want. You can cut it out right in the middle, set the box in there, and then you can just foam around it, and it's going to be just as secure. Plus you're going to put drywall right over the top of it anyways, so it's going to hold it nice and secure. I don't think there'll be any problems in there, and I've seen a bunch of people that are doing that. So don't feel limited by having to put it next to a stud. Let's get this guy marked out. So I'm actually going to run. Let me get out of the camera. I'm trying to make this so that you guys can see this, but I'm going to cut out along this seam so that I don't have to go through any of these plastic studs. When we're cutting out for this pipe, that's kind of why I went across like that, so that we will have to cut out some of those studs so we can see how hard that is to actually do. But I'm going to put this just a little bit above this seam right here. And let's just mark this guy out. So let's cut the electrical in real quick for the Romex to slide into, and then we'll notch in so that we can get this guy. So I've set up the chainsaw. It shouldn't hit the concrete inside, but honestly, you can go buy one of these electric chainsaws. This happens to be a cordless one. You can go buy these over at Harbor Freight or whatever, pretty cheap. Just drill a hole in the bar, put the block in there so that you get your depth in there. And let's give this a shot and see what it does. That makes a heck of a mess. But you can see right there, we've got our chase cut in. Now, see what happens. Oh. So I went ahead and I set this thing up so that it should be cutting just about the width and the depth that I need to go for this guy. So let's see how well it works. And get it nice and hot. So you can see the edge of the plastic 2x4. Got our box right here, and check the fit. It slides right in. You can see it sits flush. It doesn't run into the concrete. I'm back to the concrete, which is pretty cool. Sits right in, and we'll end up securing that with screw out here. She'll be nice and tight, and then we'll just foam around that once we get to installing it. Now, we've cut out our box, we've cut out our track. I'm going to take this little 2-hole saw, just clean out that track, make sure that everything's in there and it's to full depth. So that's all cleaned out. And I got this little piece of Romex right here. Now this is kind of cool about these things. So when you get it, and you're ready to start sticking it in these tracks, since you only cut it out a little bit, you're going to want to make sure that you roll it out flat. So just pulling it straight out of the coil, you might want to hang it on something, come up with a roller system or something so that you can pull it out flat. And then what you're going to do along the wall, you just take, this is a paint stick, maybe a door shim or something, and you're just going to get it in there. And you're going to jam it back in there. Alright, So we got our box, pop our hole open. Should use the screwdriver, jam our Romex in. Pull that out, get that guy in there. Let's get screwdriver, one screw. You can see that pulls that in nice and tight. So that's really all there is to it. Running electrical in one of these ICF walls, it's not bad at all. And then you just, continue on down towards your next outlet, switch, whatever you need to do. Super easy. Now, one benefit here, get my tape measure here. So that thing is pushed in as far as it can go, right? So you're that far in, which is 1 3/4 inches. So code to have a nail plate over your stud is 1 1/4 inches. So you're a 1/2 inch deeper. You won't have to go through and put nail plates up in all of these locations where you're crossing through studs. So that's a benefit. Okay, so here's our Romex coming in. And you see, we just get that in there. Use a paint stick, shim, something like that. You see the concrete is right there. And got our piece of Romex here. We're gonna slide it in through its little lock spot. Got the Romex in the box. Get the box stuffed in there. Get it in place. You can see it fits really nice in there. Take our screw. See how well those studs hold it. Pull it back. And then all you'd have to do is go through, shoot a little foam in here, and then you'll end up foaming the rest of your Romex in as it comes across. Let's say you need to run a vent stack, a drain, maybe some PEX line or something in these walls so that you can plumb a fixture that is up against an exterior wall. Same thing that we did here, we're just going to do for the entire length, and we're going to actually cut through some of these blocks. Let's see how well that goes. So I'm going to cut this entire channel out. Now I can use the foam cutter, or I can use the chainsaw. Let's give it a shot with the chainsaw. We don't have our electrical coming through here. Like I said, I think I'd do plumbing first. Okay, I got me a little chisel here. Break this one up. Let's use that. There we go. You see concrete in there. That's pretty cool. I poured this in like a week ago. I poured it last weekend. So pretty cool. All right, now this should be our tougher cut right here. So let's go ahead and make this one. You can see I hit the plastic stem back here. So. Now, this poor chainsaw has been bolted here, so it's great for that phone, but I might actually go get the new chain for that thing for cutting through these plastic studs. They are kind of tough. And then I popped them into, you can see that plastic stud right there. So, when you cut through that guy, if you're going to go across those, it definitely takes a little bit more to get to them. The other thing that I didn't take into account when I started cutting this, and I'll get you guys some close-ups right now, was the top block. This would be kind of a cool thing to see. When I was actually drawing it out, I did it this way so that you could see the top block. Then I completely forgot about it after when I was cutting. Couldn't figure out why it was so nasty right there. Alright, so you can see the inside of our web right here. Concrete, web, concrete. So this is the web that goes across. And you can see this is one of the plastic 1.5-inch studs. So it's the same dimensionally as a 2x piece of lumber if you're framing in there. And then you can see, hopefully you can kind of see right here, this is the top block. So got our sill plate up here on the top, and on a top block it flares out so that it can support the load from the edge to the edge of your sill plate. This is just, I actually forgot about this when I was cutting it, but that's what that looks like. Okay, so once you've got your track all cut out, pipe sizes that'll fit in here. So this is just 1.25 inches. I didn't get any fittings to put on this guy. 1.25 inches fits in just fine. Pretty much the biggest that you can run in one of these without having to fur it out with a fitting is going to be 1.5 inches. Think about it, the outside of the fitting is obviously bigger than the outside diameter of the pipe. So 1.5 inches is the biggest you can run in here with a fitting involved. 2-inch will run in here just fine. The outside diameter will fit in there, but if you've got a fitting, that's going to stick out past the surface area of the foam. So that could cause you a problem. So with ICF, installing drywall is super simple also. Every 8 inches, you've got these plastic strips that act as a stud. They have the same pulling force as a steel 2x4. So I don't know if you can see how thick that is in the camera, but it's fairly beefy. Now if we had come through and if we just formed and poured a wall, or we use CMU cinder blocks to do the retaining wall on the downstairs, we'd have to fur all that out, add insulation, do all that. With this, you set it all, pour it, you're done. You can come through and start actually working on finishing the walls. So got a piece of drywall right here. Let's see what we can do. Try not to get in the way of the camera. So just like that. You can see that thing's pretty solid, so that's just 4 screws. There's actually another strip right in here that I could hit, make it even more solid. You can see the box, everything lines up. Man, it makes it super clean doing that. So let's get into ICFs. Believe it or not, ICFs was not our first choice. Our first choice was actually conventionally frame the whole house. And then of course lumber prices were going crazy. And since I was taking it on as a DIY project, I was looking for ways to speed everything up, especially with our construction season up there being short. Obviously I'm still here in the garage because there's probably 5 feet of snow on the ground right now. So I was looking at different DIY ways to get this house built and build it fairly quick. Came across SIPs, which these are SIPs, structurally insulated panels. Not going to get into that. We'll do another video on those. And originally we were just going to build the whole house out of SIPs. The problem with that, let me actually draw this out for you. So we're building on the side of a mountain. The housing pad is already cut in a little bit. So for me to build the entire house out of SIPs, I was going to have to dig back in about 5 feet past where I was going to build. And all this would have to be, graded off and tapered. The big problem with that I started to realize is that I'm going to lose all this space up here. So then it became apparent that I needed a retaining wall of some sort here so that I could build the house and not lose all of this space. So I started talking to people. I found Gary over at ICF Specialist, talked to them a little bit, got some quotes for buying just the blocks from them, talked to them about possibly letting me stack all the blocks, and then they would just show up, make sure that I did everything right and it was square, and pour it. But all my research kept bringing me back to using Fox blocks in particular, but ICFs for the downstairs, because I wanted to be able to backfill up against this and not lose all of this space. Not to mention, it's eventually going to erode and probably start interfering with the building at some point. So it just didn't make any sense. So that's pretty much all for this video. I definitely learned a bunch by doing this. I have a much better comfort level on running the electrical, installing the drywall, what it's going to take to put plumbing into any of the walls that we need to, how the assembly goes together as a whole. I feel like ICFs are probably a project that you could take on as a DIY project. I think I would get somebody to come in, double check everything, and then pour it out for you. That way it's nice and straight, and you're not worried about that just in case you did make a mistake. It is concrete. It's a little harder to correct those mistakes after the concrete's set. There are special bracing and whatnot that are available for doing these things. You can imagine that the weight of that concrete when it's up in the air gets pretty heavy. For me, I probably, mainly for speed, I'm probably going to hire this out. Plus, I found ICF Specialists. Those guys are awesome. Went and looked at a couple of their jobs. With our short building season up there, it would take me, maybe 6 to 8 weeks to get everything stacked and squared away. And I'm going to be incurring costs for renting the bracing and all of that. Whereas a good contractor like ICF Specialist can come up and they can probably knock this thing out in less than a week. And then I'm off to, framing out the downstairs and going vertical with my SIPs on the second floor. We'll get into SIPs in another video. But I think anybody with some skills as a DIYer could absolutely do this, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. There's definitely a ton of information out there on these things. ICF Specialist has a YouTube channel. They've got a bunch of information. There's another channel called Cutting Edge Homes, I think. They've got a bunch of really good information. There's a channel that I've been following, the Lake House Build, I think. They did more or less what we're doing, you know, a similar style house out of ICF's. You should check out their stuff. And obviously Fox Blocks and all the other manufacturers have YouTube channels and a ton of information out there. I definitely recommend checking those out. I'll go ahead and put some links to those in the description so that you guys can find them pretty easy. So I hope you learned something. I am going to throw in a quick little bonus video at the end here of me cutting the top block out. I actually found out how to do that by watching a video that was on the Fox Blocks channel. It just didn't make the cut for the full video, but I thought it was helpful, and I really like the foam cutter. So that's this video, and hope you tune in for more. So Junior and I are out here, we're working on this mock-up. I got a little confused looking at the detail, why they wanted us to form up, remove some of this foam and form up on the outside, then put our mud sill on top of that. So I was looking online and I found on Fox Blocks they actually have a top block which flares out just like this. So I don't have a top block, but I still want to be able to do this this mock-up. So I knew I was going to have to do some carving on these ICFs. They've got a great video over at Fox Blocks on how to make these in the field, which is where I figured out how to do it. So let me show you. This is a foam cutter. Hopefully you can see this pretty good. It's basically just an electric. This wire gets nice and hot. And Junior loves this part. He's over here watching this through the camera, so let's see if I can do it at this angle. This is really fun. So you can see it just gets hot, come down. Little smoky. And it cuts that wedge out of there. So, yeah, buddy.
I was watching this, and so the camera was recording. All the camera views will be able to see this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Evidently, you'll be able to see this, according to James. So, cut that little block out of there with that thing. It's super fast. I went through, you can see, I removed the top notches off of here where this thing locks in. So this is going to be my bottom course. Went through and removed the bottom ones just so I could get it stuck down on a piece of plywood fairly good. I got this one, you can see with cutting that off. I've got that V cut out so that it resembles a top block. It's probably not perfect, but I'm still playing around with that thing. And just all snaps together like that. Then you've got all of your little stud areas, which are 8" on center, all lined up. So we're gonna get this thing all formed up. Actually gonna pour this thing. Then I'm gonna show you how to cut in the wiring chases and mount a box so that you can see how you run the electrical. I wanted to kind of play around with that so that I knew what I was getting into. So we'll get on to that.